All right, well, hey everyone, my name is April Dunnam. I'm a Principal Cloud Advocate at Microsoft, and I'm going to be talking to you all today about Microsoft 365 Copilot in Power Apps. So this is actually a new capability that we have. So if you've used Power Apps in the past, you probably have noticed that there is a Copilot button in there, and you might have experimented with it. So the main thing I want to get across is if you've used that in the past, that classic experience, which is Copilot Chat, is different than what I'm talking about today. So we actually have the full capability now of Microsoft 365 Copilot that we can take advantage of in our model-driven apps. So a few caveats before I go into the demo here. Currently, this is in preview, so this is something you have to enable. I'll show you how we enable this. And also, it is only in model-driven apps right now. So you're not going to be able to use this full M365 Copilot experience in your Canvas apps quite yet. The other thing too is this is great for getting those read-only operations, so you can have it ask questions about your app data, but it can't perform any operations for you. So this is not something that you would use to say go and filter all of my items in this view for me or something like that. It's really more for those kind of read-only type capabilities. With that out of the way, let's get into more about what are some of the things that we can do with this capability. So it's cool, we have this integration, but how can I actually use it in my day-to-day? One, it's to just summarize information. So it can have the context of where you are in your application. So if you're on a view of all of your items, you can do things like summarizing the table items. You can see a recap history of a selected item that you're in. You can even have it perform actions for you. So we can take the capability that Microsoft 365 Copilot offers to be able to call on some of the agents, like to be able to draft a PowerPoint presentation based off of your app data or a Word document. We can even have it call custom agents that you build as well as out-of-the-box agents. Even do visualizations with features like Code Interpreter and reference your work content that is there in Work IQ. So with that out of the way, now that you know some of the limitations and the scope of what we use this for, let's switch over here and see how this actually works. So first thing I want to do is show you how do we use this and actually enable this in our environment. So what you'll want to do is go to admin.powerplatform.com. And here we have these settings under Copilot. And one of the settings is M365 Copilot Chat. So any environments that you want to be able to take advantage of this new capability, you would just select from this list, edit the setting, and then make sure that these toggles for M365 Copilot Chat are toggled on. So if you have this on, then that's good. At the environment level, you can use this, but there's one more thing you need to do. So any application, any of your model-driven apps that you want to be able to use this new capability, you also need to enable this setting at your app level. So if you open up your model-driven app in edit mode and go over to these settings here and select the upcoming tab, one of the features that you have that we can add here is Microsoft 365 Copilot in model-driven apps. So just make sure that that's toggled to on in any application where you want to be able to use this feature. So if you have that, then you should be all set and ready to start using this. So let's take a look at some examples here. So what I have is a pretty basic model-driven app. In this case, it's just pointing to one Dataverse table that we have for candidate information, and I have some custom formatting on this. So to use Microsoft 365 Copilot inside of our app, we'll see this button right here at the upper right-hand corner for Copilot, and that will launch the window. So again, as you can tell, if you've used this Copilot experience in the past, this looks different because you can tell this is the full M365 Copilot experience. If I click on this little hamburger kind of navigation menu, I can see all of those agents that we have access to, as well as previous chat in my chat history that I have. I can also do things like toggling between the work mode of Microsoft 365 Copilot and the web mode. In the three dots here, if I click on that, we can also do things like doing temporary chats if you don't want it to save your data, things like that, and toggling off web search. So all this capability baked right in here into our Power App. We can also do things like if I don't want to have to type all of my requests, we can start dictation or even start that voice chat with the agent to answer some questions. Now I'm going to go from some more simplistic use cases of this towards some more advanced. So let's start off with something relatively simple. I want to ask how many candidates are in this screen stage right now. So I have my candidates table here. If you look on the stages here, I have applied, screen, interview, offer, all these different stages. Yes, I could filter this, but I could also have this natively in this Copilot chat as well, where it can go through the data in my application and get me these quick answers. So here I can see I have 3 candidates, do a quick spot check that looks right. I see about 3 in there. So we're good to go. And notice the thing that I like about this, rather than just filtering, if I'm trying to really synthesize some data here, is I can have this back and forth conversation. So it's asking me, if I want, I can also break this down by recruiter or role or stages in the pipeline, which is really nice to have. So that's cool. That answered questions about this kind of overview of the data. But what if I want to get some more information about kind of where we are with a particular candidate? So I'm going to go into this candidate here. And now I'm in an individual record. So I'm going to show you how this Copilot integration keeps the context of where I am in the app. So I want to ask it to summarize this candidate's progress so far. So it's going to take the fact that I'm in an individual record here for Marshall, and it's going to look at the history of all the data that we have here, as like the current stage, when they entered that stage, and give me this nice summary. So if I wanted to be able to just send a message to my boss when they ask about, hey, where are we at with this particular candidate, I can just go to my application, ask Copilot, and have all this kind of copy and paste ready information here of all the stages, completion, even some information about what this indicates, which is really nice. All this is good. So I've got some questions answered about the data itself, do some summarization there, and of a particular entry. But what if I want to know something a little bit more detailed here? Like, okay, I have all these candidates that I'm tracking, but who should I follow up with today? So this is a very nondescript question. I'm not saying, hey, show me all candidates where current stage equals this, right? This is more kind of use your direction here, and someone's catching the references in the chat. That's cool. Of kind of what should I follow up with? Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, are there any high priority follow-ups? Like maybe they've been sitting there in a particular stage for a long time. That's the kind of context that Copilot is able to bring me. So notice for Marshall here, he's been in the interview stage for 19 days. So I probably need to follow up with him today and see kind of where he is on the background check, because that's completed and clear. So kind of what's the holdup in the interview stage. I can see Moira is also in the interview stage, and some of these are in there for a long time. So it gives me those high priority. Then we have some medium and lower priority, and then recommended actions. So I can kind of have that reference of my data. So far, so good. We have this where we can really answer as many questions as we want about the data in our Power App. But where this becomes really powerful is combining this capability to not only use Copilot to answer questions about our Power Apps data, but reference the data in our overall work life, in like Work IQ, in the files that we're referencing. So one of the things that we have is we have a document stored in SharePoint that has our hiring policy information. So this gives me some information about, what are all the background check definitions? What do they mean? What's our review criteria? What are some risk and considerations? And then what do all these different stages mean? So what if I want to kind of cross-reference this file and ask it a specific question about that? So I could do a / and I could reference a specific file like this hiring policy. And I could say, hey, based off of our hiring policy, what is the target time and stage for the interview stage? So I can see, are we behind, and kind of where are we at based off of what the target is on that document. So it goes through, reads the document, and now I can see that the SLA should be less than 10 business days to be in that interview stage. And I can see required actions and all that, and get that easy information all without having to leave my Power App. So I can do all of my management for the candidates right here. I can ask more questions about the file. I don't even have to actually reference the file. It is intelligent enough to know where to find that information. So if I don't do the specific mention of that file, and I ask something like this, like according to our policy, does review required on a background check automatically disqualify a candidate? And it gives me some sources here. No, it doesn't. And then if I look at my source, it does reference that file. So there's our hiring policy file without me having to directly add that into the chat. So that's another example, kind of one of the things that we can do here. But what else can we do with this? We can have it kind of make some executive kind of decisions or recommendations for me. So I'm going to say for each candidate, classify their fit score into policy ranges. So in that document, we have things like if they're an exceptional, strong, or moderate fit based off of the score that we get in there. So it can do that cross-reference again of what are all of these scores that we have for each candidate versus that table that we have stored in a SharePoint document library there, and do that reference. So here are all the scores, and there's the fit there. Cool. So this has been pretty useful so far, but what if we want to take this to the next level? And what if we wanted to actually perform some actions for us? So one of the things I'm going to ask it to do is, for all this data, can you help me visualize the candidates by stage? So what this is going to do is use a feature called Code Interpreter, which is part of Copilot. And it's going to execute some Python for us and create a visual right here in the chat. So this is a great way to do those instant visuals and kind of being able to visualize your data in different ways natively in Power Apps. So we can see it's coding and executing. And all of this is real time. As you can tell, it's not taking terribly too long to do all this. And now I have a cool bar chart where I can see we have 8 people on applied and have this in a great visual that I can then go and download as a PNG, put in my report, whatever I need to do with this. So that is an example of how we use Code Interpreter in this. Now, when it becomes even more powerful is if I do something like @mention an agent. So if I do the @ symbol here, we have all of these out-of-the-box agents that we have in Copilot, one of those being the PowerPoint agent. So what if I need to be able to create a slide deck that visualizes where we are with the hiring process for all these candidates? So I can @mention that PowerPoint agent and ask it to create a slide deck showing an executive update on all of our pending hires. So it's going to go to work, calling that PowerPoint agent for me, again, taking in the context of all of our Power Apps data here, and it can ask me some follow-up questions. So this is the thing that the PowerPoint agent is great at, is asking follow-up questions to make sure that it's producing what we want. So it can kind of confirm that primary focus. I'm going to say I want this to be for specific departments with hiring challenges, and then I want this to be the department heads is the audience for that. And I can even tell it how long I want this to be. So I can say be concise, maybe more in depth. So let's say maybe concise here. And then we can even tell it the balance of visuals. Do we want more text, and then even themes? And then we'll just say, let's go. Now this right here, the actual agent, does take a while. So this is going to probably burn the rest of the demo time if I just let this run. So I did run this last night, and I had it create a PowerPoint for me. So let's go in here into our OneDrive, because when it does create these assets for you, it pops them into your OneDrive in a Copilot folder. So that's what it's done for me after it ran through that. And it created this pending hires executive update. So all with that PowerPoint agent. I took all of the data from my app so I can see the current hiring landscape and all the open positions. It even was able to do some math, like getting the average days and pipeline for each of these and the percentage in the active interview stage, and then even an expectation of the expected hires for the quarter. I mean, this is a pretty detailed PowerPoint deck that I can just plug and play and use, all based on my data. There's a graph that we had it create earlier, kind of some of those bar charts by the higher level, like whether it's executive, a senior role. I can see it by category, whether it's engineering. I mean, this took me, even last night when I ran it, it took about 5 to 10 minutes to run and create this, which isn't bad. I mean, I didn't have to do anything else. That's ready to use, right? Same concept we can do. There's the Word agent as well. So we could call that, let's exit out of this. We'll just say, cool, we've already did that. I can @mention the Word agent. What if I'm preparing for one of these interviews? So I'm going to go into a particular candidate here. Maybe I need to do an interview for her. I'm going to say, hey, for this candidate, draft interview questions. And it can call the Word agent doing that same thing, going through, taking the context of this particular candidate for me. And then again, I ran this last night. Look at this comprehensive Word document that I created with interview questions specific to the role and specific to the requirements that we have for a hiring policy and standard things that we want to ask. So I have, buckets of leadership and management competencies questions. So I can pull from this bank of questions and help me with this kind of interview process here. So lots that we can do with this. One more thing that I'll show as well. What if I'm in a particular candidate here and I want to be able to, I need to have a meeting to make sure that we're kind of online with the offer for this candidate. So let's close out of this. And I'm going to ask Copilot, hey, schedule a meeting with my colleague Daniel to review this candidate at our earliest convenience and include the candidate details, right? So this is just native functionality that we have in Copilot. So it'll go look for Daniel's information. It's going to compare our calendars and suggest a time that we can meet to talk about this particular candidate. I didn't have to write a workflow in Power Automate to have it schedule this. It's just going to do that for me. Look at this as a clickable card. It gave me some recommendations for when we can meet, sometimes that work, and I can select the one that works for me, and I can have it send the invite for option 2. So there it goes. That was on March 9th, I believe I selected. So it's just going to give me a confirmation that it did that for me here in a second. And if I go back and check, there you go. It was scheduled, my calendar. Here we go. We have our meeting scheduled so we can talk about this candidate. So tons we can do with this. There's some documentation that'll point you to. We can do reminders. We can draft, Outlook emails and all of that. If you haven't taken a look at this, go activate it in your tenant, give it a try, and start experimenting with what you can do.